The power of the Roman Empire lasted for 5 centuries. The life of the Babylonian and Assyrian empires was even shorter. The Persian Empire lasted for 300 years before being overthrown by Alexandria. The British Empire lasted for 200 years. But the Byzantine Empire, formerly known as the Eastern Roman Empire, lasted even longer than the great Egyptian dynasty, lasting for more than 1,000 years. So let's find out how they achieved that longevity. How did they rise to become the only civilized dynasty in Europe? What made the Byzantine Empire so strong and durable? What role did they play in the development of medieval Europe? Today, let's explore together the glorious 1,000-year history of the Byzantine Empire. In fact, the entire eastern part of the Roman Empire after the separation of the Western Roman Empire can be called the Byzantine Empire. Byzantium was an ancient Greek city on the Bosphorus, first mentioned by Homer in his Iliad. In the 7th century BC, the Greek king of Megara colonized the area and named it Byzantium. According to legend, the name of the city comes from the myth of the bee. The settlers saw a bee buzzing around a wild fig tree and interpreted this as a good omen. This legend is immortalized in the coat of arms of the city and then of the empire. In 1667, Emperor Constantine the Great chose it as the new capital of the Roman Empire, renamed it to Constantinople, and made it the center of the Eastern Roman Empire. Constantine's decision to move the capital from Rome to Constantinople was one of the most important decisions in world history. Constantine the Great was born in 272 AD in the city of Naissus, the capital of Moesia Superior. His father, Emperor Constantius Chlorus, died in 306, and Constantine soon found himself at war with his own grandfather, Emperor Galerius, who wanted the rule of the empire for himself. After defeating Maxentius in the Battle of Milvian Bridge in 312, he entered Rome as a conqueror. After defeating his rivals, Constantine convened the First Council of Nicaea in 325, which defined the main tenets of Christianity. For this reason, he is considered one of the most important figures in Christian history. The empire flourished under Constantine, and the prosperity of the capital increased dramatically. When Constantine built the Hagia Sophia in the 4th century, it was the largest building in the world. It's now one of the most important symbols of the Byzantine Empire and has been a mosque and a museum. As for the inhabitants of the empire, it must be emphasized that the vast majority of the population of the Byzantine Empire spoke Greek, since Greek was the language of the Byzantine aristocracy, the government, and the church. Only a small part of the population spoke Latin. Even the emperor's court used Greek instead of Latin. Because of this, many historians call the Byzantine Empire the Third Hellenic Kingdom. But the Greeks of the Byzantine Empire saw themselves primarily as Romans, not as successors to the Greek kingdoms. By the way, from the time of Constantine the Great, the Byzantine Empire was officially Christian. However, despite the official establishment of Christianity, the polytheistic cults of the Greeks continued to survive in Byzantine society for several centuries, although they could no longer be practiced openly. Paganism only disappeared from the empire in the 7th century. For the Byzantine Empire, trade was of great importance, and trade relations connected them with merchants and countries throughout the Mediterranean. They traded with merchants from Arabia, India, China, Africa, France, and Italy. Due to its geographical position, Constantinople quickly became the main center of trade in the Mediterranean, turning the city into a huge market. The citizens of Constantinople were famous for their wealth. To say that people were rich is to say nothing. The emperors were incredibly rich. The treasury of the empire was located in the capital and contained untold wealth. The wealth of the Byzantine Empire can be seen from the construction of the Hagia Sophia. Its dome was covered with gold leaf. Inside the temple, everything glittered with gold. Marble columns decorated with golden patterns alternated with silver ones. The floor was covered with red porphyry and white marble. There were many similar buildings in Constantinople. Of course, the great wealth of the capital attracted the attention of enemies who constantly tried to capture it. In addition to trade, agriculture played an important role in the economy of the Byzantine Empire. Agriculture was mainly engaged in crop production and animal husbandry. Most of the agricultural products were exported abroad. The main food of the peasants was wheat, vegetables, fruit, and wine. Slaves were engaged in agriculture. The slave system in the Byzantine Empire was widespread. Slaves were brought from the conquered territories and from neighboring countries. Serfdom existed in the empire, but it did not take deep roots due to the lack of arable land. To protect their extensive overseas possessions, the Byzantine emperors maintained a large army consisting of infantry, cavalry, and a navy. The elite of the army was the opsikion, a kind of elite bodyguard of the emperor selected from the most courageous and skilled soldiers. Later, the opsikion became hereditary. Byzantine military leaders wore distinctive armor that made them easy to spot on the battlefield. In addition, the Byzantine army had excellent siege weapons. And, of course, the Byzantine Empire was very successful in culture. Under the emperors of the Macedonian dynasty, a cultural revival took place in the empire. The arts flourished, public buildings were built, and magnificent churches were erected. The most magnificent of them was the Church of the Divine Wisdom of God, or Hagia Sophia, built in 537 by order of Emperor Justinian. In the Middle Ages, it was the largest building in the world, the highest dome in the world, the greatest architectural creation of mankind. The glory of the Byzantine Empire was enhanced by the works of outstanding poets such as Theophylact, who sang of the exploits of the emperors of the dynasty. Many writers and poets, philosophers and scientists came to Constantinople from other countries to work in its courts and teach in its schools. Speaking about the military strength of the empire, it should be noted that the Byzantine Empire successfully repelled the Arab invasions, thanks to the brave Byzantine Emperor Leo III the Isaurian, who managed to defeat the Arabs in many battles. At the same time, the Arabs respected him and made peace with him. After Leo III, his son, the philosopher, continued his father's work and also strengthened the empire. Under the next emperor, Nikephoros Komnenos, the Arabs invaded again, but he defeated them. One of the most prominent figures in Byzantine history was Emperor Alexios Komnenos, who reigned from 1081 to 1118. His reign is often referred to as the Golden Age of the Empire. Thanks to Alexios, the empire experienced a revival in all areas. The emperor paid special attention to the improvement of the army and the navy. With his help, the Byzantines won a number of victories over the Turks and the Normans. In addition, Alexios established good relations with the Pope and opened negotiations with the French king. He also wrote several works on military affairs. But, unfortunately, the story does not end there. The empire continued to decline and finally fell in 1453. On May 29, 1453, a Turkish cannon fired a harbinger of death, heralding the approaching doom. This day would forever remain in history as one of the darkest days for Christendom. The attack of Sultan Muhammad II on Constantinople lasted 53 days. On July 29, 1453, the Ottoman Turks captured the city. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the imperial standard was lowered. The Turks entered Constantinople and began looting. Orthodox icons were trampled underfoot. Gold items were thrown into the sea. Some inhabitants of Constantinople were killed, some fled to the mountains, while others fell into slavery. Thus ended the existence of the Eastern Roman Empire, which had existed for 100 years. The long and glorious history of the Byzantine Empire is full of ups and downs, but it was precisely this empire that became the connecting link between ancient and medieval history, preserving and passing on to the peoples of the Middle Ages the heritage of the ancient Greeks and Romans. It was she who saved European civilization during the Middle Ages, saving it from the onslaught of barbarism and laying the foundations of the modern legal system of Europe, preserving ancient literature and science which would otherwise have been lost to us, thereby giving rise to the Renaissance. In addition, the Byzantine Empire actively participated in the Crusades, sending its troops to participate in almost every crusade, fighting shoulder to shoulder with the Catholic Knights against the Muslims. It was thanks to the Byzantines that the Crusaders were able to capture Jerusalem and establish the Kingdom of Jerusalem. The Byzantine Empire's contribution to culture is the preservation of ancient manuscripts, which it passed on to the Renaissance. We owe the Byzantine Empire for our ability to learn about the ancient world through these manuscripts, thus allowing future generations to study them. The Byzantine Empire's contribution to culture is also evidenced by the fact that the Russian language, along with Latin and Greek, was declared the third universal language of the Church. Finally, the Byzantine Empire educated the Slavic peoples, including Russia, bringing civilization, literacy, faith, and writing to the Slavic world, thereby giving them the opportunity to emerge from the ranks of the barbarians and join the ranks of civilized nations. Without the Byzantine Empire, perhaps we would never have learned about Jesus Christ, since it was thanks to the Byzantines that Christianity spread among the Slavic peoples. So, in general, the Byzantine Empire left a huge legacy, which we still use today. What do you think about the role of the Byzantine Empire in the history of mankind? Let us know in the comments below. And that's all for today. See you soon.